welcome to the deep dive. So you've sent over some really interesting material this time, a PDF, right? Looking into the purpose of mission.
That's right. Yeah, it gets into some deep
It
questions.
really does.
Yeah.
And it kind of sparked this central question for us, I think. When we talk about global missions, is the end goal just, conversion?
Or is there something more, something deeper?
Exactly, like a more lasting purpose that actually revolves around worship. It feels like a pretty big shift in perspective.
It does, yeah. The source, recentering mission on the rhythm of worship, it definitely makes you rethink some of the standard ways we track success in mission.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of pushes you to ask, have we been maybe too focused on just that initial decision, that belief step?
Instead of the ongoing life-changing thing.
Yeah, the power of genuinely, adoring God.
Okay, right. And that's exactly what we want to dig into in this deep dive. Our mission here is to pull out those key ideas.
The ones challenging the old ways.
Yeah, and explore this really compelling alternative, this idea that mission at its core is about drawing people into worshiping God.
And there are some surprising angles in there.
Definitely, some thought-provoking stuff. So let's get started.
Okay, so where to begin? Maybe with success itself.
Good idea. How we define it.
Right, because the source uses this amazing image, a symphony of worship echoing from every corner of the earth. That's the real measure.
Wow. Yeah, that paints a very different picture compared to just, counting converts.
Totally different.
It really reframes it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what if mission isn't just about someone saying a specific prayer or, ticking a box?
But about sparking something deeper.
Yes, this deep personal connection with God that just naturally bubbles up into worship.
That's precisely the argument. The source suggests that if we only look at that initial conversion, well, we might be missing the bigger picture, something much more enduring.
It's like hearing the first note of a song but missing the whole symphony that follows.
Exactly. You miss the richness.
Right. And the source really hits hard on how redefining our goals could change, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of seeing conversion as the end point, what if it's just one of the gateways?
Gateways to a lifelong journey of worshipful devotion. I like that phrasing.
Me too.
Yeah.
It feels like it could lead to much more, meaningful engagement, a lasting impact.
It points to a real shift in how we see the entire faith journey. Conversion isn't the finish line.
It's a starting block.
Right. It's where things really kick off. And this feels, like the source mentions, particularly relevant now.
With the world being so connected.
Yeah, and seeing all these diverse ways people express spirituality.
And it's interesting how the source pulls in Scripture to back this up. It mentions Exodus 9.16, God telling Pharaoh he kept him around to show his power.
So his name would be proclaimed.
Yeah, which ultimately points towards worship, right?
Right.
That feels like the implication.
Absolutely. The source calls this the first part of a twofold flow of glory. God reveals himself. Then it links that to the Psalms like Psalm 96 and Revelation, especially Revelation 5.
Ah, the vision of the huge crowd worshiping.
Exactly. All those different voices praising God. That's the second part. Humanity's response. Worship.
So it's this cycle. God shows his glory.
And we respond with worship. And the source makes a really crucial point here, maybe one that's a bit counterintuitive for some,
Which is?
that we often think mission stops at conversion. But actually, that's just the beginning.
The entry point.
The gateway, exactly, into that deeper reality of worship.
Okay? Which naturally leads to this next big idea. Worship as the ultimate destination.
Yeah. We tend to think mission equals expansion, more churches, bigger congregations.
Keep everything out.
Right. But the source asks, what if all those outward signs are really pointing to something deeper? A return to the very essence, the heart of worship.
So it becomes less about all the stuff we do for God, the programs, the activities.
And more about how deeply we respond to him.
Yeah, with our adoration, our reverence. It's subtle, but that's a really significant shift.
It is. And the source encourages us to imagine it. Picture all the mission work, all the outreach.
Not just ending in numbers on a report.
No, culminating in this unified, genuine praise, collective worship that's authentic and passionate. That really changes the metric of what matters.
It really does. It's that paradigm shift the source talks about. Moving from a mission of God.
Extending his love, reaching the lost.
A mission to God, where every single act of outreach, every conversation becomes an offering, an act of worship itself.
And that has very real practical implications, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like when planning a project.
The main question isn't just how many people will convert.
Right. It becomes, how will this draw us and others closer to God's heart? How does it invite more people into this rhythm of worship?
It's shifting from just doing more for God
To being more for God, more devoted, which means, investing in our own relationship with Him first.
understanding his love, building communities where worshiping together is valued just as much as outward action.
Okay, so that brings us to this concept of the primacy of adoration.
Yeah, and I get how initially this might sound a bit off, equating mission purely with worship.
Especially given the long emphasis on sharing the news, leading to conversion.
Right, it feels like maybe we're skipping a crucial step.
But the source uses that analogy, doesn't it? The wedding invitation.
It does. Conversion is like getting the invitation. It's crucial. It gets you in the door.
But the invitation isn't the actual wedding celebration.
Exactly. It's the entry point. Conversion opens that door to a relationship with God, but adoration, that's the ongoing participation, the celebration of who he is.
So conversion is the turning point, the reorientation. But adoration is the living, breathing response to His love, His grace, His majesty.
The constant act of worship in his presence.
Yeah. Theologically, then.
Theologically, the source describes adoration as this dynamic relational encounter. It springs from our deepest longings.
And that's what gives mission its true meaning.
Right. Mission becomes about cultivating this ever-expanding chorus of praise, not just tallying initial decisions.
That really flips the script on how we measure success, doesn't it?
It does, instead of just counting converts.
The real measure is how many stay, how many actively join the celebration, the worship.
And it gives that example of the community center.
Oh yeah, the one focusing on spiritual growth through communal worship.
Right. The focus shifts from the initial numbers to the actual depth of connection happening there.
And it suggests concrete steps, like intentionally making spaces for people to worship together.
Yeah, and rethinking success metrics to actually include the depth of that worship.
And using stories. Sharing the journey from conversion to adoration.
Exactly. It all points towards this beautiful vision of a global symphony of adoration, a language that transcends borders.
Which is a perfect lead into the next section, echoes in Scripture. This idea that worship isn't new, but woven into the Bible's fabric.
The true intent of mission, the source argues.
And it goes back to Exodus 9.16 again, God raising up Pharaoh.
To show his power so his name might be proclaimed. And the source unpacks that.
Right, breaks it down to layers. First, God shows His power, the plagues, freeing Israel.
But that wasn't the end goal in itself.
No, it was the means to the next step.
Yeah.
The proclamation of His name.
Which naturally leads to worship. That's the ultimate response.
The true worship is defined as that complete, wholehearted response to God revealing Himself as holy.
Theologically, the source says worship is just the natural reaction to God showing us who he is, and that all creation exists for this purpose, to declare his glory.
So practically, our mission work should focus on creating environments where people can actually experience God's glory.
Turning every encounter into a potential moment for adoration. Yeah.
And again, practical ideas.
Yeah.
Intentional worship communities.
Redefining success beyond just numbers.
And empowering those personal stories. Testimonies of encounter leading to adoration.
It keeps reinforcing this theme. Every revelation of God is an invitation, not just a one-off, but a lifelong journey of adoration.
Uniting all these diverse cultures in a global chorus.
And Psalm 96 comes up again here, presented as this timeless call to join that song.
It's not just singing, right? It's recognizing who God is, what he's done. That's what sparks it.
And the source highlights that the salvation in Psalm 96 isn't just a past event. It's an ongoing, daily revelation.
Constantly inviting us to connect with his saving power.
And the command is so direct. Declare his glory among the nations. It speaks to God's inherent worth. He deserves adoration from everyone.
The implications are pretty big. It calls for unity beyond our divisions. It challenges the status quo.
And it suggests practical ways to integrate this daily, like, intentionally speaking about God's goodness each day.
Getting involved in the community in ways that reflect his love.
And again, shifting ministry success metrics towards the depth of worship and the outreach that flows from that worship.
It paints that really vivid picture of a worldwide anthem, uniting all nations, using that example of a diverse community festival of praise.
Which flows perfectly into Revelation's vision, chapter 5, verses 9 to 14.
The grand finale.
Yeah, the culmination of God's redemptive plan, the ultimate destination, this cosmic chorus.
Unified worship from every tribe, language, people, nation, everyone.
The source traces that whole redemptive arc: creation, fall, redemption, restoration, all leading to this ultimate glorification of God through worship.
And as seen in heaven, the multitude declaring the Lamb is worthy. It underlines that universal inclusion.
History's purpose fulfilled in adoration.
Yeah. And that unity and diversity point is crucial here too.
Absolutely. It's not about conformity. Each culture adds its unique voice, making the chorus richer.
So for mission today, what does that mean?
Well, it reinforces worship as the ultimate goal. It means prioritizing inclusion, celebrating diversity.
And living our lives as testimonies that echo that heavenly anthem now.
Right. And practically, it encourages communities to create inclusive worship spaces, cultivate daily worship habits, and focus on storytelling, sharing how God's power leads to adoration.
Okay, this leads to another key idea: God's initiative and humanity's response. That twofold flow of glory.
Described as a dynamic process, like a sacred symphony. God initiates, humanity responds.
So God's initiative is Him revealing Himself.
Exactly. Through creation, His word, and supremely through Jesus. It's an active outpouring, inviting real encounters.
And our response. That's the worship part.
Holistic worship. Acknowledging His worth, total surrender, lives echoing adoration. It's participatory.
Not just mental agreement.
No, a full engagement in this dialogue of worship.
And mission sits right at that intersection.
It acts as the catalyst, cultivating environments for that encounter, nurturing flourishing worship communities, empowering transformation rooted in worship.
And it creates this virtuous cycle, right? Revelation leads to worship.
Which opens us up to deeper experience, leading to more revelation, more worship. It's a continuous journey of mutual enrichment.
Leading to collective transformation. That's powerful.
Which flows nicely into worship as a display of praise, a vibrant tapestry of cultural expressions.
The object of worship is constant God, but the ways we express it are incredibly diverse.
And the source gives those great examples. African drums, Middle Eastern calligraphy, Filipino hymns.
Each adding a unique thread to this rich tapestry, celebrating God's boundless creativity.
Theologically, this diversity reflects God's infinite creativity. Authenticity is key, not uniformity.
But grounded in truth, right? It mentions the interplay of tradition and revelation.
Exactly. Ensuring worship stays anchored in God's unchanging reality while being culturally relevant.
So for mission, this means empowering authentic local expressions.
Yeah, through local leadership, cultural integration, adaptive liturgies, contextual evangelism.
Using local art, music, stories.
Honoring traditions where appropriate, adopting a learner's posture, and sharing authentic testimonies from within that culture.
It really underscores that worship is a universal language, but spoken in countless dialects.
And that very diversity reflects God's multifaceted glory, leading towards global harmony.
Okay, but the source also issues a warning, doesn't it? About the pitfalls of evangelism as endpoint.
Yes, a crucial warning. If we stop at counting saved individuals, thinking the job is done,
we risk a shallow victory. Outward agreement without deep transformation.
It calls it the illusion of conversion, like intellectual assent without the heart being truly touched.
The map reading analogy again. Reading it without actually navigating the terrain.
Right, and it uses that powerful gardener's lesson.
Ah, yes. Planting seeds conversion isn't enough.
No, you need soil prep that's nurturing community, continuous care, worship, teaching, fellowship.
And protection and encouragement, discipleship. Otherwise, the seeds fail to thrive.
The peril is having that truncated vision focused only on the evangelistic numbers, neglecting the lifelong journey of worship.
And it warns against creating faith consumers.
Yeah, people with a transactional view of faith, rather than a heartfelt response to God's glory.
So the antidote is cultivating a lifestyle of worship.
Exactly. Teaching what it means to worship holistically, building communities of authentic discipleship.
Through intentional community, holistic teaching, and really celebrating the depth of worship and transformation, not just the initial decision.
Which leads perfectly into this idea of worship as the engine and the destination. They're intertwined.
A divine dance, the source calls it. One flows into the other.
Worship fuels mission, and mission aims at worship.
How does worship fuel mission?
Well, a heart transformed by encountering God in worship naturally overflows. You want to share that?
It's empowerment through gratitude.
Leading to tangible expressions of faith, acts of service, sharing your story. The source gives an example of a church's worship leading to community outreach.
And mission then becomes an invitation to worship.
Broadening that circle. Acts of service themselves become living worship, pointing people towards God.
Theologically, it connects back to all creation declaring God's glory. Worship and mission are two sides of the same
They
coin.
really are.
And practically, we need to cultivate a culture of worship.
Through intentional practices, discipleship focused on worship, creating spaces for encounter.
And measuring success differently, focusing on the depth of transformation.
Quality of relationships, impact stories, sustained engagement, not just numbers.
So the final sections really wrap this up. Living a worship-driven mission and joining the eternal anthem.
Yeah, driving home that worship isn't an accessory, it's the ultimate aim. It aligns with God's purpose, gathering a people whose joy is glorifying Him.
The gospel itself is framed as an invitation into that eternal symphony of worship.
And looking at the grand narrative, Genesis to Revelation, it's presented as a worship-centered story. Exodus, the Psalms, John 4, Revelation 5.
Mission becomes that invitation, moving beyond just conversion to a response of adoration, like Isaiah's encounter or the Samaritan woman.
And worship fuels mission. Think of the Moravians, Paul and Silas in prison. Even the Great Commission comes after they worship Jesus. Adoration precedes action.
And it celebrates that beautiful diversity and praise again, God gathering a global symphony.
Urging us to live that eternal anthem now, worship woven into daily life work, relationships, struggles, witness.
And that final point, worship isn't just the result, it's the fuel.
Born from adoration, sustained by devotion, mission becomes the overflow of a heart ablaze in worship.
Contrasting performance-driven mission with mission rooted in God's presence, overflowing love.
Where success is measured by captivated hearts drawn to worship, it's a fundamental shift.
Prioritizing prayer and adoration, building worshipful communities, empowering indigenous expressions, measuring depth.
Mission becomes a lifestyle of worship overflowing into witness. The goal, expanding the circle of worshipers in that unending global chorus.
Wow. Okay, so for me, the huge takeaway from this deep dive is this incredibly compelling perspective shift. Worship isn't just part of mission, it's the very heart, the ultimate aim.
It's about inviting people into this continuous, vibrant response to God's glory, not just a single step.
Yeah, that never-ending song of praise.
Absolutely. And, thinking about your listeners wanting to grasp things quickly but thoroughly, hopefully, these insights have sparked some real aha moments about what mission is truly about.
They definitely have for me. And it leaves us with this final thought for everyone listening. Maybe take a moment to reflect on your own understanding of mission. How might centering it on worship transform your approach?
How might it deepen your engagement, both with God and with the world?
What does it really mean for you to join that eternal anthem of praise? It's definitely something to chew on, an invitation for more reflection and exploration.